For anyone who's not familiar with the Train Sim World franchise, its developers, Dovetail Games, have been engaging in a controversial practice of annual releases ever since Train Sim World 3 of September 2022. At the time of this video's production, we're on TSW 5 and not far out from the debatably necessary TSW 6. Although I understand why the silly sods from Chatham do annual releases, something it's good for business, so I hear, that doesn't mean I can't question or criticise the whole thing, but I won't rant about it this time because that's not the point of this video. Anyway, back in 2021, between TSW 2 and TSW 3, we got the so-called Rush Hour series. Essentially, this was a trio of routes focused on intensive passenger services, although the American route wasn't anywhere near as busy as the other two. Today, I wanted to revisit the British Rush Hour route and to see how well it holds up nearly 4 years after its release. The Brighton Mainline route add-on, originally known as London Commuter, was first released in October 2021, and the version compatible with TSW 5 is available on Steam for $43.59 NZD at full price. That's an increase of $6.60 over the price of the original TSW 2 version. Go figure. As for route coverage, you get 50 miles of track from London Victoria to Brighton. That's something you don't see in TSW all that often, a complete end-to-end route. However, this is not a fully linear route, as you also get the spur from Red Hill to Reigate as well as the quarry lines, the latter being the fast lines that avoid Red Hill. I'm disappointed in Dovetail for not including any of the suburban lines that branch off the main line between Clapham Junction and East Croydon. Talk about pop music. Wait, that's not right. Talk about missed opportunities. In any case, I'm not sure of the exact time period in which this route is set, but I'm guessing it's somewhere between 2016 and 2020, based on the abandoned Platform 1 at Battersea Park, and the presence of a new Thameslink depot at Three Bridges. On a personal note, and although I didn't ride any trains on the real Brighton Mainline, I did, at the very least, go train spotting at London Victoria Station on the 6th of May 2025. Although it was unintentional, I ended up focusing solely on the southeastern trains, followed by a bonus catch in the form of 2009 tube stock on the Victoria line. As for the southern trains, I saw a few of them in the Portsmouth area on the day before I went to London Victoria, and even rode aboard one of them from Portsmouth Harbour to Chichester. I also saw 3 Gatwick Express trains too, but weirdly, all those sightings were in Chichester after I got off the Class 377. Like so many other Train Sim World routes, the amount of motive power offered in the Brighton Mainline pack could have been much better. As it stands, the base route only includes 2 electric multiple units, namely the Gatwick Express Class 387/2 and Southern Class 377/4. The former was new to TSW, while the latter was already available with the East Coastway route of December 2019. To be fair, the 377 included with Brighton Mainline has better sounds than her East Coastway counterpart, but the improved sounds were never ported over to the East Coastway 377. Go figure. Dovetail missed a trick by not including Southern's Class 377/6, Class 377/7, and refurbished Class 455/8 units. If they were included, then the rail scene out of London Victoria would look a lot more realistic, especially for the suburban services. One aspect of this add-on that has always annoyed me is Dovetail's decision to only include one variant of the Class 377, thus repeating the mistake they made on East Coastway. It's completely unrealistic for every single southern service on this route to be run by a 377/4, because there are only 75 units in that subclass, and Southern needs a lot more than just 75 4-car units to run their services. I'm confused as to why DTG set up some in-game trains to appear with 377-1 unit numbers. This doesn't count as an additional variant because it uses the same unaltered 377-4 model, and the Steam listing doesn't actually make any mention of a 377-1. I don't see why DTG couldn't have added a proper 377-1 with the older headlight style, as seen in this photograph I took at Fratton Station. Like so many other electric trains we've got in TSW, the Class 377-4 and Class 387-2 are nothing special when it comes to the driving experience, and they are two of the many units in this game that feature a combined throttle and brake handle. Personally, I prefer to drive the Class 387 because I like her bright red livery and the relatively easy Gatwick Express run, even though I'm very confused by these units' complete lack of any large/dedicated luggage storage spaces, something that was included on the earlier Class 460 units of the early 2000s. As an aside, I think the Heathrow Express 387s are better equipped for airport work than their counterparts on the Gatwick run, based on what I saw when I rode aboard Unit 387133 from Heathrow Terminal 5 to London Paddington, as my first train ride in England. I know some people don't like the Class 387s at all, and that's fine by me, but I'm still a fan of these units myself, although I don't really know what it is that I like about them. Timetable mode is perhaps the best aspect of this route add-on, although it is not flawless by any means. You get 178 playable services for the Gatwick Express Class 387-2 and a staggering 1,059 services for the Southern Class 377-4. As one might expect, the 387 only appears on the Gatwick service, which runs every 15 minutes in each direction, and either terminates at the airport or goes all the way to Brighton, while the 377-4 is used to represent more than just the main London Victoria to Brighton service. She can also be seen on services running off the map to destinations such as Epsom Downs, West Croydon, East Grinstead, Caterham, Tattenham Corner, Horsham, Eastbourne, Littlehampton, and even the Milton Keynes to East Croydon service, which is objectively wrong in this case because, in real life, the 377-4 cannot run this service due to her lack of a pantograph. While we did get a recreation of the dual voltage 377-2 with West Coast Mainline London to Milton Keynes, that thing still doesn't substitute into the Brighton Mainline's timetable. Go figure. Due to route coverage restrictions, you can only run 2 full services with the Class 377-4, namely the Reigate or Brighton services. Speaking of Reigate, this station is the end of third rail electrification on the North Downs line west of Red Hill, and the Class 166 Networker Turbo from Great Western Express has 121 playable services in the timetable, running between Reigate, Red Hill, and Gatwick Airport. It's a shame that Dovetail cut the route coverage at Reigate instead of extending it to Guildford. In terms of additional branches, and as I alluded to earlier, there were so many missed opportunities for the Brighton Mainline DLC that it's not funny. Another section that could have been included was Kemah Junction to Lewes, the latter being another place where you could link up with East Coastway, in addition to Brighton. In addition to the Class 166, the Southern Class 313, Southeastern Class 375-9 from Southeastern High Speed, and farcically overused Class 66, from more routes than I care to remember, also have layers on the BML's timetable. The Class 313 only has 11 playable services, while the 375/9 has 65, and the 66 has 19. The 375 is used to represent diverted Charing Cross to Hastings services, running via East Croydon and Red Hill, as opposed to their usual routes via Grove Park and Sevenoaks. Incidentally, I rode along their normal route a few times in real life, or at least part of it, as I was staying in Tunbridge Wells near the end of my UK trip. Meanwhile, the Class 375/9 and Class 465/9 are also used on AI-only southeastern services into and out of London, Victoria. While it's good to see that this side of the station wasn't left as a ghost town, this also reminds me of the glaring lack of additional 375 and 465 variants in TSW. Please sort this out, Dovetail. At the very least, I would like to see the Class 465/2 and Class 375/7 added to the game, preferably as free updates. It's very unrealistic to only see a 375/9 or 465/9 every single time a southeastern train turns up at London, Victoria. For example, the unit in this footage was a Class 377/5 arriving from Ashford International. As impressed as I am by the busy nature of the Brighton Mainline in Train Sim World, I still have a few questions. 1. Does the Class 378 from the North London Line DLC appear on AI-only services at Clapham Junction and Battersea Park? I'm not buying the NLL add-on until the Richmond extension is released. Question 2. What's the point of the Class 09 from the West Somerset Railway DLC appearing at Brighton Lovers Walk Depot when she has no services on this route? Instead, she's always doing nothing but sitting in the siding with some EMUs for company. Question 3. Why do we still not see the 377/2 from WCML South subbing into the BML's timetable? And question 4. If modders can sort out a new timetable and a 12-car Class 700 for this route, not to mention a decent Class 377/7 for WCML South, why could a Dovetail not do the same thing themselves? A proper 377 is needed as a substitute for the 377/4 on the Milton Keynes to East Croydon service, and the 12-car 700 is needed to fill a major gap in the rail scene south of East Croydon. As far as I'm concerned, the station modelling, and most immediate trackside scenery, looks perfectly fine, but there are some cases where the trackside scenery leaves a lot to be desired. For a random example, here is Market Place, next to Haywards Heath Station, as it looks in Train Simulator. And here's how it looks in real life, as seen on Google Street View. As for performance, the route usually runs at between 65 and 71 frames per second on my end, but the frame rates are less consistent at London, Victoria. Normally, the frame rates will hover around 42 FPS, but out of nowhere, it'll sometimes drop down to a measly 20. I have no idea what could be causing the game to lag that much, given that it seems to be able to run fine even with the increased number of trains present at this station. I noticed multiple route building errors while inspecting the Brighton Mainline. These included, but are not limited to, the top of a viaduct wall visible in the down slow line between Battersea Park and Clapham Junction, floating fences next to the fast line near Colston South, trees and bushes placed too close to the track on the quarry lines, to the points where they're clipped by passing trains, Invisible walls under two bridges between Hassocks Station and Clayton Tunnel, so you can't walk on foot from the station to the tunnel, and instead have to sit on a train, then go to the free roam camera. And another instance of a tree placed too close to the track, but just south of South Croydon Station this time. Meanwhile, the passenger information screens at Wivelsfield are all mixed up, without referencing an obscure song by the Cars. In other words, Platform 1 shows northbound destinations, while Platform 2 shows southbound, when it should be the other way round. I'm confused as to how this mistake could have been made in the first place, and why it still hasn't been fixed is anyone's guess. I also noticed a couple of silly things involving the NPCs. Firstly, I saw them walking around the end of Platform 2 at Wandsworth Common, and over to the fast line platforms as if any trains were going to stop there. Secondly, I had several instances where I boarded a train and tried to sit down at a seat, only to find that they were all taken by invisible NPCs. Why their invisible spray, which they presumably stole from SpongeBob and Patrick, still hasn't worn off is anyone's guess. Overall, and in my opinion, the Brighton Mainline DLC is still a mixed bag after all this time. I like the busy timetable and experience of driving the Class 387 on the Gatwick Express, as well as the opportunity to take the Southern Class 377 for longer runs than what's possible on East Coastway. But, and this is a big but, the overall experience on this route is still let down by the inclusion of only one Class 377 variant, the omission of Southern's refurbished Class 455/8, the mediocre or borderline poor default scenery, especially at Reigate, and the absence of a 5-car Class 377/7 and a 12-car Class 700/1 from the default timetable. Personally, I would like to see this route remastered and brought up to the same standard as Cathcart Circle and the West Somerset Railway. In its current state, I think the Brighton Mainline only deserves a 6 out of 10, and yet I'm not sure if I would recommend the route to other TSW players. If you've got your own thoughts on the route, feel free to leave them in the comments section. To anyone who's stuck around to the end of the video, you win candy from a small town in New Zealand's South Island, and said candy can also be used to pull out a splinter. It's the Twizzle Tweezer Twizzlers.
So that's how it used to